Monster Hunter World may have had its last monster update over 1 year ago, but if one thing is certain, the game sure as hell isn't dead. From speedrunning grinds to new Taz discoveries, and not to mention the spectacular Iceborne Community Edition mod, there's still plenty of things to do in Astera and Celiana. Honestly, it's amazing how a community effort that removes claw staggers and changes weapon movesets can revitalise a game that I've played over the course of 2 years. Chief amongst these community members who are keeping the Iceborne experience fresh are the team behind Monster Hunter Resurgence. A while back, you may have seen the White Fatalis mod, a custom quest that adds in unique lightning attacks, a fresh current gen look, and even a beautiful eclipse in the sky for the ancestral dragon. Well, now they've announced that they'll be adding another monster mod in, and this time it's some serious business. Introducing Abiorugu. Yeah, that's right, a frontier monster. As I'm sure you can imagine, I'm impossibly excited for this. They've chosen to localise this monster as Abiogladius, the reasoning for which will be linked in their tweet in the description. So for those of you who never experienced the monsters of Mesoporta, who is this green guy? What can you expect? Well, this is where I come in. Hi there, I'm CeraCymmetry, and this is what you could expect from the fierce wyvern, Abiorugu. Abiorugu was a first for a game based off of the 2nd gen engine. It was a Brute Wyvern, a rare example of a new monster type being added to an engine that came before its debut game. Inhabiting the marshlands and Arctic ridge areas, also known as the swamp and snowy mountains of 2nd gen, as befitting of its name, it was a fierce, aggressive monster that stuck to the hunters like glue. A lot of its movement involves sped up versions of the standard Brute Wyvern walks and sidesteps. This had the effect of sending hunters flying whilst Abio was able to get behind them in a flash, and with Frontier's effect of the lock-on camera being disabled whilst you were unable to move or staggered, it meant that this hulking beast could very easily spin circles around you. My first few encounters with this dude consisted of me being very surprised that it could move as fast as it does. Off the back of that, Abiorugu borrowed a few moves from its other Brute Wyvern cousins. You may recognise Devil Joe's Rock Throw, a double forward bite reminiscent of Glavenus, and it even rolls towards you much like Uragan. Of course, this wasn't enough for Abio, oh no. This Brute Wyvern's element of choice was fire. It does seem fairly obvious looking at the design, there's some sort of reptar vibe about him, and it does fit very well. You'd see sweeping beams much like Devil Joe, using flame instead of the dragon element, and that was all very nice and simple. However, it does get better. If there's one word that can be used to describe how Abiorugu used its fire attacks, it's shotgun. Fire would charge in its mouth for a short period, and then it would swing its head from left to right, discharging this heat in a wide-reaching AoE blast each time. The range this had was absurd, and could very easily tank your health down to 0 if you failed your evade. Plus, it looked cool as hell compared to all the usual fireballs or fire beams that we normally see. Of course, Abio is a frontier monster, so it did have 2 more tricks up its sleeve. Again, much like Devil Joe, it could inflict the defense down ailment through its saliva, and this was a lethal combination with its powerful blade attacks. Get hit with this, get staggered as he dances behind you, and hunters could find themselves sent very quickly back to base camp. Finally, the crown jewel of Abio's moveset, that one tail attack. You see, when you get hit in most Monster Hunter games, you're invulnerable until your hunter falls to the ground and gets back up. Unfortunately, Abiorugu didn't get that memo, and introduced what I like to call juggle attacks to the series. This double tailspin would first stun your hunter to their knees, setting them up to be launched into the air by the second tailspin, where the Brute Wyvern would then fire a skyward fire blast to send you crashing back to Earth. This 3-hit combo was guaranteed death, and the pressure on you and your teammates to avoid or block all 3 hits meant that you always had to take Abiorugu seriously. You couldn't be complacent when you're faced with this combo. And there you have it. That's just a summary of the main features of Monster Hunter Frontier's first ever Brute Wyvern. I'm incredibly excited to see how much of this will be translated across to Iceborne once the Resurgence team releases the mod. Now, in an ideal world, I'd love to see it all. The juggle attacks, defense down, the rampant mix of Brute Wyvern moves, but I'm not a modder. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of roadblocks that would be involved in adding all this kind of stuff in. But I'm very confident in the abilities of the Resurgence team. Crimson Fatalis and White Fatalis were fantastic, and Akinusuka, one of the members, does some incredible work with the weapon designs. If you've ever seen the Gogmazios weapon mod, that's the person who's done it, so it's in very safe hands. And hey, Remember that this is just the first Frontier monster. There's a cousin of Abio out there that I think would be very interesting to have a look at. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this short look over a lovely member of the Brute Wyvern family, and would absolutely recommend for you to check out the Monster Hunter Resurgence team on Twitter for all of the up-to-date news on this mod. Frontier monsters in a mainline modern Monster Hunter? Bring it on.